What is Caucasity? Breaking down the psychology of the white organization. There's been extensive research that has gone into this talk, and you will hear some ideas that'll be very well articulated. There'll be things that you felt before, but you couldn't put a name on it, couldn't put a finger on it. I trust that you'll gain a great deal from this one. And if people support it, we'll get through the entire thing. I have quite a few pages of notes, and there's no doubt that for those who have the Black Code, and all of the Black peoples of the earth should have it, I'll make sure that I upload these written notes so that you can use them for all time. As we go through, please do share your questions, comments, tithes, tuition using the information in the description of the video, as well as the banner at the bottom. These kind of conversations are more academic. You all might know I've written many papers on these kinds of topics, and every now and then I get the privilege of sharing this with you. I do want you to know that if you've ever taken a course in sociology, African American studies, critical race theory, or any of these types of areas of study, this talk will involve some of those ideas, but it will be better than any talk you would have gotten at university. I know, because I had to sit through those unfortunate courses. Caucasity, behavioral analysis of the white organization. Some of these terms you may be unfamiliar with because they are academic terms in a specific area of study. And in other cases, they are terms that I coined, terms that you'll find in the Black Code. The term Caucasity, a portmanteau of Caucasian and audacity, serves as a sociolinguistic shorthand. While frequently deployed in popular culture to describe the domineering or audacious behavior of some whites, the reality it describes is verified by sociological, psychological, and historical scholarship. It is worth noting that this term was first coined by Marquett Burton in a 2010 spoken word open mic in Los Angeles, California. At its core, Caucasity operationalizes what academic literature identifies as white supremacy culture and intergroup dominance orientation. You'll notice if you have the Black Code, I don't use the term white supremacy always. It means a specific thing. I want to speak to you about the white organization's inclination to monitor, control, dominate, and question the legitimacy and belonging of the original people. You'll notice I often use the term the white organization. Why? Because they are organized and they tend to stay on code, on their code. They agree with each other. They don't condemn each other. They don't call out each other's wrongdoings. They pretend all is well. Hence a situation like Israel. To understand the mechanics of this phenomenon, one must move past the colloquial surface. The audacity implied by the term is not merely individual imprudence. It is the behavioral manifestation of habitus. This is a key term to remember. A concept formulated by sociologist Pierre Bourdieu. Habitus refers to the deeply ingrained habits, skills, and dispositions that individuals possess due to their life experiences and socialization. And you'll see me editing this as I go. Obviously, there have been some ideas that I've updated over the years. A lot of times when you hear me give talks like this on Haiti, on François Duvalier, on the Hitlerjugend, on the Bund Deutsche Mädel, it's because I've written papers on this like a decade ago. And sometimes you have to update these things. Within a racialized hierarchy, the white habitus fosters an internalized sense of spatial, social, and moral entitlement. When this entitlement is disrupted or asserted in mundane settings, such as a white individual policing the legitimate presence of Black individuals in public spaces, it manifests as the behavior colloquially dubbed Caucasity. Universally, this behavior relies on an unexamined assumption that whites are the natural arbiters of social order. That should hit heavy. The assumption that whites are the natural arbiters of social order. The whites are in charge. They decide what's right and what's wrong. They decide who's right and who's wrong. And there are many ways to display caucasity. And caucasity is not only displayed by whites, maybe displayed by those who are white adjacent or those who identify as white. The inclination to monitor. Now, this is something that you all should notice and you should think, oh, gee, that's weird. Why are they always in our business? Do you guys know that I get death threats every day from the white organization? I also get all of these messages, and you see them in my public comments sometimes, responding to things that are directly addressed to black people. Yes, I'm addressing something directly to blacks, but for some reason there's a white in my comments engaging. And I think, gee, I don't go into the comments of white supremacists when they're talking about replacement theory and say, hey, I disagree. I never do that. In fact, I don't follow any white supremacists because I don't like their ideology. I have nothing to do with them. I don't want to be bothered and I don't want to bother. But that is the inclination of the natural people, the original people. However, the white organization, they monitor you. As we say in popular culture, among the blacks, we're never truly alone because there's always a white person in our business. The systemic impulse to monitor the original people is thoroughly documented in sociological scholarship. Sociologist Elijah Anderson introduces the concept of the cosmopolitan canopy versus the white space. In his research, Anderson demonstrates that historically white spaces, white neighborhoods, white workplaces, white upscale commercial establishments, maintain a tacit expectation of racial homogeneity. Yes? Meaning they don't say it, but they expect that everyone there is white. Many of you have probably never been to a place like that. Sometimes it's a very expensive country club. Sometimes it's a very exclusive restaurant. These places exist where they don't expect non-whites to be there. When you show up, it's almost like, how'd you find out about this place? And then you are under increased monitoring and scrutiny. Yes, these places exist. And the funny thing is that depending on where you're from as a black person, you may have never been to these places. Depending on your socioeconomic status, you may have never had access to these places. Depending on how minoritized you are based on your geography, you may have no interest or inclination to go to these places. I tell you, my plantations in Georgia, every time I go somewhere and I see a bunch of black people, I'm always like, man, that's a lot of black people. Well, why is that? Because I grew up in California. Blacks are 6% of the population. 6%. That's a real minority when you consider that means that 94% are not black. So most places you go, it's just you, right? Especially if you have a high income. So, for example, when blacks say things like, oh, that guy's dating a white girl. Well, if he's from Georgia, that would be weird. If he's from Texas, that would be weird. There's blacks everywhere. It's a high black population in Detroit and Mississippi. But if you're from Washington or California, then it makes sense because you're minoritized. Just mathematically, it's more likely. But so often, blacks are without education, yes, and without true understanding of the war we're in or how to win. That is why I created the Black Code. Anyways, as I was saying, scholar Anderson demonstrates that historically white spaces maintain a tacit expectation of racial homogeneity, meaning sameness, everyone white. And I might add, in the absence of such, racial hierarchy. So if it isn't homogenous, at least we maintain the racial hierarchy so that when the blacks show up, they know they go at the bottom. Last time I experienced this was Cape Town, South Africa. I wanted to go into a restaurant, have something to eat, and the whites told me we're not serving. Looked around, they were serving, everyone was eating, except that everyone eating was white and everyone serving was black. So my presence upset the homogeneity of those eating at leisure, and it also upset the racial hierarchy. Because if I was eating, that would put me on parallel, on par, appear to the whites. Come on. Come on, exactly. Don't be that guy. Yeah, you remember. Little Cash Kid remembers I was on live when it happened and they were behaving that way. And then the owner of the restaurant, once we got at those Google reviews, tried to lie and say it wasn't racism. Imagine a South African that's not racist. That goes for the black ones and the white ones. Yes, it turns out that among you blacks are traitors. And in due time, those who do not have and follow the black code will be deemed traitors and will be dealt with first. Yes, indeedy. It must happen.